Okay, well, yeah, Howard kind of stole some of my stuff there, because I was going to start off by thanking my wife for all this, but I have to admit and tell you that she did know what she was getting into. Sometimes, you know, a guy will start dating some young, beautiful Greek girl and not really fill her all in, but the first conversation we had, I was a singing waiter at your father's mustache, and she was celebrating her 20th birthday, and she had the misfortune of sitting at my table, and the rest, as you say, may be history. But I did tell her at that point that I was traveling around the state making speeches on behalf of Vietnam Veterans Against the War, so she kind of knew at that point that she was probably in trouble. And it's been more or less downhill ever since. Anyway, and then that convention that Loretta talks about, both of them, the Democratic Convention in Miami, was an interesting introduction to politics. I don't know. I remember. I think we had Bloody Marys that morning after.
I'm still drinking them, by the way.
Yeah.
Still my favorite
I don't know.
drink.
In the brand of the hotel, when we finally got back to the New Jersey delegation, it was no one slept that night. I got better television coverage that night than George McGovern did. I spoke on behalf of the Vietnam the Veterans Caucus, and I think I was on at 7:45. That's when we should have been nominating George McGovern. But it's a time that about 2 years ago, when we decided to do it another term, Mike and I said that this was going to be the last. We both agreed that it was time to start getting some new folks to take in the leadership. And I think it was a good decision, because if you look at this first fundraiser that Leslie's put on, it was a good decision to get some new leadership. And Leslie, we couldn't have done better than to have those. But yeah, Howard, you're right. None of us are done. I don't think that being done is something that we can do. We can look back on what we've done. We've had some struggles, but we've also had some successes. And Howard, we have to admit, you're one of them. I mean, one of the best moments that we've had here was when Howard was elected to the freeholder seat. One of the most disappointing one was 3 years later, when we underestimated, all of us did, just how nasty those guys can be. And all of the things that we thought had been buried, similar to when, you know, we elected Barack Obama, all the ugliness came out. All the ugliness came out that re-election when we tried to re-elect Howard. And that election had nothing to do with the quality and the integrity of Howard Burrell. It had to do with the lack of those qualities on the part of those who were running against him. But that's just, you know, we tend sometimes to underestimate what goes along with our victories. And so we need to, I guess, learn from that and move forward. But there's always moving forward. There's lots of stuff to do now. I'm just trying to figure out, I'm taking a little sabbatical. Some of you might remember that I took a sabbatical some years ago of about 3 years to get my PhD. And then I came back and got involved again. So I'm taking just a little sabbatical, maybe 6 months right now. And we'll figure out what I'm gonna do. There's so much to, you know, lots of stuff to do, and lots of things to work on. There's too many bombs falling all over the place, and too many people that are hungry, and too much hatred running around, imbuing our politics. And that's a problem. And then there's the just the misunderstanding that we really need to start correcting sometimes. And falling backwards. One of the things that disturbed me this week, we were at Yetter's for dinner, and on the way out, there's a box collecting money for books at the Frankfurt School. You know, I used to remember when we raised money to buy books for Uganda.
Yeah, good.
Now, because of Christy Whitman and Chris Christie and other people that think that rich people are more important than our kids, we're raising money for books for Frankfurt School. That's a disgrace. And yes, I've said this once before, it's places like Sussex County that make that possible. I mean, we keep electing people like Scott Garrett. And we need to keep not stepping back and just accepting it, which we haven't. We keep doing it. We keep moving ahead. And we need to keep, there's some things maybe we could start doing differently. And I've resolved from now on never to let the comment go, oh, they're all alike, when we're talking about the political parties and we're talking about candidates. When some yahoo at the fair comes up to us and says, oh, you are all alike, I think I'm going to challenge that because it's not true. I'm sorry. Trey Gowdy is not like Elijah Cummings.
That's true.
Chris Christie is not like Loretta Weinberg. Parker Space and Gail Phoebus are nowhere near like or of the same quality or integrity as Jackie Staple and Mike Grace. Scott Garrett is running against people who are so unlike him in terms of integrity and intelligence and feeling for real people in the world. You talk about Paul Aronson or Roy Cho, and now we talk about Josh. He is nothing like those people. And so we need to say, when people say, oh, they're all alike, they're not. And the results aren't all alike. Thurgood Marshall and John Roberts are not alike. And from the top to the bottom, we need to tell people that no, there's a real difference. And I don't know what I'm going to be doing as far as being active come January. It's going to be something. I haven't figured it out yet. But one thing I know, I'm not going to accept that line from anybody anymore. And I hope you will. Thank you. Thank you all for being here.